Oleg Gan. Well, here are my thoughts on the first character from Blake 7 to truly die from the main cast. He was, in many ways, I think, the moral core for a lot of the group. Now, I also thoroughly acknowledge the fact that he didn't really do much in most of the episodes. Often he was just the muscle there to help get them out of tight situations in a pinch. But every now and then we got to see a different character shine through. One who was willing to put himself in harm's way to help settle a fight and keep other people safe. He makes himself a leader for the rest of the prisoners when they're stranded on Cygnus Alpha and have no one else to give them direction, and is willing to put himself in harm's way yet again as the sacrifice when they attempt to escape the crazy cult run by Brian Blessed. Even if the temptation of the writers was to make him an angry barbarian, he still had a good bit of intelligence. Remarking on Zen's unusual behavior and wondering if Zen is installed with some sort of a limiter to prevent him from being too helpful to the crew. And being willing to make contact with the newly thawed meat popsicles in Time Squad. Even with the obvious signs that they may be murderers, he still wants to at least try and talk his way out of a fight first. And yes, there were whole episodes where they didn't really have a good use for him, so he doesn't have much of a role. Web, Seek, Locate, Destroy, and The Duel are some that I can think of off the top of my head. However, once we get around to a Gan-centric episode, the character really pops. Breakdown realistically probably wouldn't have worked without us having come to love Gan, and being able to recognize that what the limiter prevents him from becoming really isn't who he is. The savage monster that stalks around the ship more like Leatherface than the somewhat gentle giant we've come to know and love really is quite terrifying. And it also provides some good narrative stakes because we care enough about Gan to not want him to see him die. And even the crew of the Liberator are willing to put their lives and the ship at risk in order to try and save him. Honestly, can you think of anyone else on the crew they would be willing to go to that extreme for? Not even Blake, I think, really. Most of them would probably give him up for dead if he seemed that far gone. Now, it should be said I'm not claiming that he's some great unsung hero. They did just use him to open doors occasionally, especially in the first part of the Aurak subplot. But I really think that one of the highlights for the character has to come in Shadow. When Blake is planning to make a deal with the Terra Nostra, he's the only one to step up and point out that this is wrong. Think, Gan. Think what they've got. Men, material, information. Think what we could do with a fraction of the resources they control. You think, Blake. Think what it is they actually control. Everything dirty, degrading, and cruel on every civilized planet. Earth's all I'm interested in. And right there, even in that moment when Blake is willing to compromise his morals to achieve his objective, Gan stays the course and knows that there are some things too evil to justify ever doing, even for the sake of others. And I also like the fact that even when he gets caught, rather than blaming the rest of them, he apologizes. He doesn't let his own ego get in the way of the fact that they got caught. For all that I love Avon, you know the first thing he would do would be complain and make it someone else's fuck up. I can understand why they probably wanted to kill off the character. He was somebody that the rest of the audience had probably become invested in and cared about, but for whom the scriptwriters probably didn't have a lot of great ideas for what to do with. It's kind of like why they killed off Chewbacca in the original expanded universe for Star Wars. After a while, you can't really come up with compelling reasons to keep lugging around the big strong guy unless he's constantly opening doors for people. And then what was a cool character just kind of becomes superfluous. For all that I have very mixed feelings about the new Star Wars movies, you have to admit, they really were working overtime at points to try and find excuses to keep Chewie relevant to the story. I also find Gan's last words very telling Blake he's not worth dying for. In fact, at several points throughout the series, he admits that he feels his life has no value, and he's very much the expendable member of the crew. In the episode Bounty, he's willing to go aboard the damaged spaceship, stating that if it is a trap, they can just blow it up and kill him and they won't have lost anything of value. And that may have something to do with how Gan got the limiter. having to kill a security guard that had presumably assaulted and murdered his significant other. And I'm sure the amount of guilt that must carry around with him every day, that he wasn't able to help her, and that the anger and rage that reduced him to made him so dangerous that the limiter was installed to prevent him from ever hurting anyone like that ever again. And for all that he probably wanted to be a freedom fighter, without the ability to be able to actually kill anyone, that definitely limited the amount of stuff he could do to help the cause. So falling in with Blake and the crew was a godsend. They could keep him safe when he couldn't keep himself safe, and still get revenge on those that hurt him and his significant other that badly. Now, I understand the character's gone forever and I'm going to miss him. But don't worry, friends, there are better characters yet to come and the series is still ongoing. I hope you all can maybe appreciate the character a little bit more after listening to this, and I also encourage you to watch the show. Maybe you'll form a different opinion than I did. But at any rate, I'll hope you all join me for the next episode of Let's Look at Blake 7.